let's talk Kosciuszko. We're here in Wagga Wagga at the Blamey Hotel, and my first guest on Racing HQ, Malcolm Noack. He was a slot holder last year. He's got a pretty famous name in these parts of the Riverina as well. Malcolm, welcome to Racing HQ. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Dave. It's a pleasure to be here.
I was just talking to Laurie on the Big Sports Breakfast, Laurie Daly, and he said, very, very good cricketer. What's the background? So you've lived in Wagga all your life?
Oh, all my working life, Dave.
Okay.
I originally came from Temora, grew up in a rural property in a place called Gidgenbung, which I'm very proud of my heritage there. But all my working life pretty much has been over here. And cricket was like we're country kids, and cricket's a major part of our lives as we grow up. So, and my dad played cricket, and we went to cricket, and we used to, as young kids, when 13 and 14, well 12 and 13, if one of the players was late because they're working on a tractor or whatever else, we'd love it because we could run around on the field for a moment with the big boys, and if they didn't turn up, well, we might even get a chance to have a bowl right at the end, or even maybe a bat. So it was one of those things. But all my life pretty much has been in the country.
Yeah. Very good at cricket, because Laurie said you said, did you represent Wagga or work your way through?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to go through the ranks of the Country New South Wales system and eventually play for Country New South Wales.
Fantastic.
Which was a big thrill. I've done that for a few years. Had the pleasure or displeasure, whatever you'd like to call it, of playing against Mark Waugh, Mark Taylor, and a number of blokes that have played cricket for Australia. I'll never forget we played at Manuka Oval in a city country game, and Dave Gallop, the NRL boss, soccer boss, who's a friend of mine, he was in the countryside. He was from the ACT at the time. We played at Manuka Oval, and we got rolled for about 220. And as a bowler, I actually top scored in our first innings, which I was pretty happy with. But we went out to bat, and we had Mark Taylor out for about 13 or 14. So Jeff Milliken from Hay, who's also a friend of mine, he was opening the batting for the city side. They were 1 for 20. And we thought we were going great, and we eventually had them two for about 320. Mark Waugh scored 160. Dave actually got Mark Waugh out on the second day, and seriously, I reckon he'd still be batting now if he really wanted to. He was just a pleasure to watch.
What great memories.
Yeah.
You love your racing too.
Yes.
Love racing. Where did that bug start?
Well, I married into a family my wife Diane from Tara, her brother was in racing, and he owned a couple of horses, and then he went into his own stud and bred a few, and basically just grew from there. But it's one of those things, it's a social aspect. I know when you're playing cricket, we had little punters clubs in our cricket club, and that cricket club was Lake Albert, which is sponsored by this wonderful hotel here at the Blamey. And that cricket club, as I said, you mentioned earlier, Mark Taylor, Jeff Lawson and Michael Slater all played for that cricket club. So we had punters clubs there, and obviously if it was a washout, well, we'd go back to the pub and have a beer and a bet, and it's a great social aspect as long as we don't get too silly about the punting side of things. It's great to win a few bob, but we've got to be prepared to lose a couple of bobs. So, but yeah, it came from there, and then it developed into ownership of horses, not in a big way. And I was lucky enough to be in a bunch of guys here that had the SDRA Horse of the Year for granted, which was trained by Trevor Carey. It was a New Haven Park horse. Very fast, very, very fast horse, but it went down to Flemington one day, and it was the late mail down there, up the straight at Flemington. But one of the guys, I can't think who the guy was, he said, "This horse is fast, but it's mad." And sure enough, it was. It had Brian York on it that day, and the horse backed into the rose bushes, and there was a couple of rose bushes got dug out, and I thought, well, this horse is either going to be scratched or, well, certainly scarred from the rose bushes, or the steward's going to say you can't race. But Trevor walked the horse 400 metres down the straight. The race was about 5 or 10 minutes late that day, but it said the horse could fly, but it was just a bit of a loony when it got going.
So I love the fact that there's always been racing around. And then you tell us about the Kosciuszko, not the journey, but the purchasing of the tickets.
Well, I've always been interested in it. It's a wonderful, wonderful concept. And Wagga have been lucky enough to have some slot holders over the years. So you buy tickets, it's like buying a ticket in anything. You're never expecting to win. You can think at the time, oh, it'd be nice to win something. And I bought a few tickets, and I bought a couple of tickets. Like if I've got a tab account and you a couple of dollars in front, I'll buy $10 worth, I'll buy $20 worth. And I didn't buy a lot of tickets. And I'd sort of forgotten about it. I looked at the date and forgot about the date. Then this phone call came from Scott Kennedy, and he said, "Oh, Mal, this is Scott Kennedy, da-da-da-da-da, and all the rest. You've won a slot." I thought, oh. I said, "Geez, you sure? These sort of things don't happen to me." But he said, "No, I can assure you it's true." I said, "Well, you better send an email to me with all the details, all the spreadsheets of the contact people and one thing and the other." And we'd had a few problems with our computer, and there was no email. Anyway,
so you thought it was a G-up?
Well, it started to lean that way. And then about 3 hours later, it would have been 2 hours later, I rang Scott again. "Scott, you seem to be who you are. I'm fine with that." I said, "But there's no email." I said, "This doesn't seem right." And he said, "I'll try again." I said, "Well, send it to my wife's email." So she got, and all of a sudden things started to land, and obviously the excitement started to grow right that very minute because all this information started. And anyway, I sat back and I didn't bask in any glory. But I thought, I've got to do something now. You can't just sit around, be idle.
Yeah.
So I looked at the list and alphabetically in the spreadsheet. Well, Asgarda was right at the top, and I knew Dougie. I said, "Well, I'll give Dougie a call at some stage. I've known Dougie for 1,000 years." But I looked at the betting, and I thought, well, okay, the betting's the best form indicator generally. So I started ringing and looked at a couple of replays, and one of the first guys I rang up was Matt Griffith with Compelling Truth, and he said the horse has just been taken, and I thought, what a pity. But then I thought, well, I looked at there was probably 7 or 8 slots already taken at that time by the time I got around to it, and all the eyes had been picked out of it, which is understandable. All these bigger syndicates, they arrange things, I guess, with their owners that, we'll slot your horse if we draw a ticket. So then I thought, well, I'm not going to rush. I'll just, you can still find a diamond in amongst the rough. And I spoke with Dougie, and Dougie, I told him that I was a slot holder, and he was really keen. He was, without being over the top, he was fairly bullish about his horse, and obviously I know the horse can run, and particularly if it gets wet, well, she can run faster. And I spoke with a few mates of mine that were in racing and just whittled it down and down and down as much as I could, and used all their expertise and advice to a point where after, well, I was the last slot man.
You were the last, and by a considerable time too, because I remember at the time last year we had a situation where even in the first couple of hours, horses picked.
Yes.
And then by, a couple of days, we had, a number of slots picked, and then...
I reckon I was a month. I would have been a month or so
you
after.
You really waited. Was that because you wanted to see more of Asgarda, or was it, did you have, you were getting obviously a lot of advice from others? Or
Well, I'd made contact, and the trainers I spoke with were wonderful. I spoke with Danny Williams a number of times. I was looking very seriously at Atmospheric Rock, which had a Wagga connection too, which I'd found out from Danny. I spoke with Matthew Dale, and Matthew Dale, where I grew up in Temora, his father was a gun footballer in Temora Aussie Rules, and my uncle was a coach at that time for the Temora Football Aussie Rules Footy Club. And I spoke with Matthew, and he's a mate of a good mate of mine, and he was wonderful. I spoke with Timmy Donnelly a couple of times. I rang a number of the trainers about their horses. I was very keen on Tectonic Plate, up at with Daniel Bowen.
Yep.
And I was very close to a decision with he, but it went amiss in the finish. But I was always had a really strong spot with Asgarda, and then I watched it win on Aggie's Day here, which is a big race day, over 1,000 metres. I think it carried 62, 63.
That's right.
I'd spoken with Joe Cleary, and Joe seems like a ripping bloke, and he said that he really rated his King Gutho a big chance, and I was looking at it as well. And he said, I think we can beat Asgarda this week. And he said that might help sway your decision. I said, well, look, I'll watch with interest. And Asgarda ran over the top of King Gutho that day with a lot of weight in a racing pattern that wasn't really suited to Asgarda.
Remember that day?
Yes, and it was a hot day. And I thought, well, hang on, there was no cut in the ground that day. It skimmed across the ground. I thought, Dougie's got this horse wound up. Dougie said, Mal, I really think I can run in the top 6. I said, well, that'll be nice. Like, that's a good little earner for me, and if I can run 6, I'd be quite happy. Obviously, I'd love to win, but I didn't want to run last at the same time.
Yeah.
And then I made the call, and away we went. And it was a wonderful experience. And if anyone was to go into the Kosciuszko, and if they've got a local trainer with a horse that's half a chance or better than half a chance, the ride I got taken with Doug was magical, because we went down to track work. My son, our adult kids are up in Sydney working and studying at uni, and he came back and he said, I'm going to go down to the track work, and we went down there and had coffee and
You're part of it.
I really did feel like an owner, and as I said, if I'd have taken Compelling Truth up north, well, I wouldn't have had that close experience. So it was like my name was on the owner's ticket.
Malcolm Noack is that voice you can hear, punters. So Malcolm had the unbelievable opportunity last year to win a slot in the Kosciuszko. How many tickets did you buy?
I didn't buy very many at all. I only bought, it was 9 or 10. So
that's it?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. I bought two. So
you'd say $50 worth?
Yeah, I think I bought 2, 3, and 4, and I looked, for whatever reason, I looked at the numbers, and it was the 4th ticket. The last ticket I bought was the actual slotted ticket.
That's extraordinary.
It is, yeah. So luck can happen. As I said, if it's raining ice blocks, I'd come up sucking my thumb most times. But
I think you touched on a really good point with Asgarda. You ran 5th, by the way.
Yes.
So that must have felt like a win in itself.
Absolutely. Doug said if we drew a marble, seriously, we were going to finish a lot closer than 5th. If you duplicate that run. And Doug said to me, I can't have her any better, Mal. She's really wound up. And I thought, terrific. It rained. We were at a pub at Surrey Hills on the Friday night, and it rained, and it poured down rain for about 15 minutes, and we just looked outside and thought, keep bringing this down. But it only lasted for 10 minutes more.
Yep.
But he said, Mal, I'd be surprised if she doesn't run top 5. The instruction was after drawing 12. I said, Doug, do I get any say in this? He said, of course you do. Anyway, I spoke with Doug about it. I said, about how we're going to ride. I said, look, we could take them on and try and get to the lead, but front page is going to be there, and then you got some horses inside that are going to take off, and there's going to be a few eager beavers just for the sake of the moment are going to be eager beavers. I said, if we get caught 4 and 5 deep after 400, 600 we're spent, we're going to run second last. And he said, yeah, I agree. And Doug said, well, what I'd like to see happen is that I'll talk to Billy, ride quiet, and if we can finish 3rd, well, obviously it's a payday for us all. And I thought, that'll be fine for me, and Billy rode her absolutely to instruction.
I think that's a big thing as well that should be remembered about this Kozi, is that obviously we see a number of your top line Sydney jockeys ride in the race.
Yeah.
But obviously Billy is with Doug's is Doug's daughter's partner.
Yes, correct.
And I think that's another layer. Again, like here you are. So you've grown up. You knew Doug well before any of this happened. Coringal Stud, which is of course not, it's a local stud which own the filly.
Yep.
There's just this whole Riverina connection. Well, it's a beautiful story.
Well, Jason Ferrario, the boss of the MTC here, he actually came out and he noted those points in an ad about it all, in a news story, pardon me, and his support was wonderful as well. On the day of the Kosciuszko, he had a promotion that anyone that's backed Asgarda, if it runs a place, they're going to get a free beer. And I thought, that was wonderful. And he got behind it.
That was on Aggie's Day.
That was on Kozi Day.
Right. Okay.
And he was trying to tip me into Asgarda from the moment that he heard I'd won the slot. And like I said, that without being influential, as I said, these things were good, and it also just made it more of a. It didn't become a Cinderella story, but it became a really good story of the bush horse with the bush slot holder, and it just all mapped in beautifully.
It did.
And as I said, that we finished 5th, and it was funny when we went into the theatre of the horse before the race. The first person who I saw there was Skull. Kerry O'Keefe was pretty he's the first person you stand, and his horse was a great chance. And I went up to Kerry, and he came down to a dinner. Our eldest bloke was playing cricket for a club, and Kerry came down as a keynote speaker, as a guest speaker at a night they had there, and it was the St Michael's Cricket Club actually, and it's Kerry was a keynote speaker. He sat beside the bishop of the area, and Kerry's started ploughing. I hope I'm not throwing him under the bus here, but he started dining out before grace. Anyway, anyway, I had a bit of a chuckle, and I reminded Kerry of that when we went in to the Theatre of the Horse. He said, "Yeah, I remember that. I do remember that." He said, "Yeah, they should have better protocols." He said, "They should have told me." Anyway, it was quite funny about it all. And he says, I said, "I don't care where you finish, Kerry, as long as it's one slot behind us." And he said, "Oh, well, if you win," I said, "I probably won't mind so much, but yeah, good luck." And we had a bit of a chuckle. Well, sure enough, like when Billy had the burners on, Gallant Star, that last hop was Gallant Star. We've knocked it from 5 to 6, and we've taken 5. So it was quite ironic how that actually panned out as well.
Malcolm, the day itself, just for our audience, and it's probably it can be sometimes difficult to be put into words, but you mentioned that your family were there.
Yes.
To have your kids at Randwick, you've been to Randwick before.
Yes.
But had you ever had a horse race at Randwick or anything like that?
No. My brother-in-law's had horses race there, but no, I haven't as an owner.
So it's quite special then to have all of your family there on the day. That's something you'll never forget.
It was, and this was the whole thing. It wasn't. Well, okay, it was about the money, but it wasn't about money. It was about memories, and that happened.
I think that's that narrative changed. I think at the start, like anything, you obviously have a wow. Okay, we can make some money here, and wow, this is an opportunity. Yeah. But then you obviously now you have that memory. It changes. The narrative changes now.
Oh, it was, and when we got there, like I said, we got on the soup the night before, and the next morning, my eldest Blake Fraser said, "Dad, I'm going to go out there early. I'm going to try and get a table." I thought, "Oh, geez, mate, you can't get a table on your own." I said, "Someone's going to have to go with you." So I thought, all right, I'll up and go.
Yep.
We got out there before the gates opened. I think it was a 9:30 open.
Yep.
So we're out there, and I said, "Mate, well, you're a lot quicker than me." He said, "Well, I'll dart in there."
He ran and got the table.
He raced and got a table. We got a table, and we got everything sorted out. Then, as I said, I was pretty good about it all until we got
the nerves. The nerves come.
Everything was good. We got into the Theatre of the Horse, and all of a sudden the realisation it's game day.
It's happening, yeah.
And then we went with the horses under the tunnel into the parade ring before they went on the track. And I said to the boys, I said, "Well, we've all played sport and football, them as well. I got Fraser, he's 29, and there was Georgina and Denzel. Georgina's 27, Denzel's 25, or they're all a year younger at that time." I said, "This is as close as it's going to be to playing on the AFL Grand Final." So we went in under the tunnel, and I just wanted to look up at the people and just hear and try and absorb what was going on. And they're screaming names and screaming, and it was. Seriously, you wouldn't have to have anyone wind you up about playing a game of sport when you got a crowd like that. Just the emotion and the adrenaline, like you could just feel it then. It was a magical time.
And then what an experience too, because you then finish 5th. You have that experience. You're virtually walking around on cloud 9. Then you get to see on the day as well the Everest, the Sweet Caroline, all that.
Yep.
The King Charles. Like it rolls on.
Well, I was only disappointed that Chaz and Camilla weren't there to say good day to us. But no, it was. Yeah, it was. We had a great day, and as a family experience, that was, as I said, that win, lose or draw, it was going to be one of the most magical moments we could have ever had as a family, because we're all there. And I don't know how TikTok, it's this stuff, how they find out people, but one of my kids, they found a TikTok of our family jumping during the race.
Yeah.
Of just us, and I thought, how do these things? Don't tell me there's no recognition of faces and things, because how did they find all this out? But that was a 20-second grab of the last furlong and a half when Asgarda was
flying home,
and it was just of my kids, and you could see glimpses of all the different stages during this 15-second grab, and I thought that's amazing, and it was a wonderful thing just to look back and see that.
Malcolm, I appreciate you coming down, and I'm sure all the audience as well appreciates you sharing your story. How many tickets are you going to buy this year? You're going to buy $55 worth this year?
I must confess, Dave, I've actually bought quite a few more than what I did last year already.
That's all right.
I'll make a donation back, and if lightning strikes twice again, great. But for anyone who actually does win a slot, it's a wonderful ride, and you'll enjoy every second of it. You'll have sleepless nights as well, because you said you get dizzy watching horse replays and making a decision, but it's good fun, and you know that there's a little bit of a carrot at the end of the day.
I appreciate you coming on this morning, not only for the TV audience but also the radio audience. good luck and try and get another slot this year, Malcolm.
Dave, I'll do my best, but I'm grateful to be here, and I'm certainly grateful for that experience, and I thank you so much.
Malcolm Noack, who won a slot last year in the Kozi Osco, bought $50 worth of tickets, picked as Garda, the locally trained Wagga mare, ridden by Billy Owen, and ran fifth, and what a great story. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Pleasure.